Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Nexus Podcast. I'm your host, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. If you're new to the show, welcome. And if you're a returning listener, thank you so much for being here. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. We read every single comment, so drop yours below and let us know where you're listening from.
Hi, everyone. I'm thrilled to be back here with Michael. Today's topic is something that almost every English learner struggles with at some point, and honestly, it's one of the most requested topics we've had. We're talking about how to sound natural when speaking English, not just grammatically correct, but truly natural, like a native speaker.
Exactly, and Jennifer, I think this is so important because I've met so many learners who speak English perfectly from a textbook perspective. Their grammar is flawless, their vocabulary is impressive, but something still feels off. They don't sound natural. They sound robotic or overly formal. And that can actually make communication harder, not easier.
Absolutely, Michael. And the thing is, sounding natural isn't about being perfect. In fact, it's often about being less perfect, if that makes sense. Native speakers make mistakes, we cut corners, we use informal expressions, and we break grammatical rules all the time. That's what makes speech sound authentic and real.
Right. So today, we're going to break down exactly what makes English sound natural. And more importantly, we're going to give you practical tips and techniques that you can start using immediately. Whether you're preparing for a job interview, planning to study abroad, or just want to feel more confident in conversations, this episode is for you.
And if you find this helpful, please share it with your friends, your classmates, anyone who's learning English. The more people we can help, the better. All right, Michael, let's start with the basics. What do you think is the number one reason people don't sound natural when they speak English?
Great question, Jennifer. I think the biggest issue is that most people learn English from textbooks and formal lessons, which is fantastic for building a foundation. But the English in textbooks is formal, structured, and complete. It's not how people actually talk in real life. In real conversations, we use contractions, we drop words, we use slang, we interrupt each other, and we use filler words. All of these things make speech sound natural, but they're rarely taught in traditional classroom settings.
That's such an important point, Michael. Let me give you an example. In a textbook, you might read, I am going to go to the store because I need to buy some milk. That's perfectly correct, but it sounds stiff. A native speaker would more likely say, I'm going to go to the store because I need some milk. Or even more casually, I'm going to grab some milk from the store.
Perfect example. And notice how Jennifer used contractions there. I'm instead of I am, and gonna instead of going to. These aren't mistakes. They're features of natural spoken English. If you want to sound natural, you absolutely must use contractions. It's non-negotiable.
And it's not just about contractions. It's also about how we reduce sounds and blend words together. In natural speech, we don't pronounce every single word clearly and separately. Words flow together. For example, want to becomes wanna, got to becomes gotta, and gonna to becomes gonna. This is called connected speech, and it's happening all the time in English.
Yes, and this is where a lot of learners struggle because they've been taught to pronounce everything clearly and precisely. But when you do that in real conversation, you actually sound unnatural. You sound like you're reading from a script. Native speakers are lazy, Jennifer. We take shortcuts wherever we can because we're trying to communicate efficiently, not perfectly.
Exactly, and I want to emphasize this to our listeners. Using these reductions and connected speech patterns isn't sloppy or incorrect. It's actually a sign of fluency. When you can naturally reduce sounds and blend words together, that shows you're comfortable with the language. You're not translating in your head anymore. You're thinking in English.
So true. Now, let's talk about another huge factor in sounding natural: intonation and rhythm. English is a stress-timed language.
which means we stress certain words and syllables while reducing others. This creates a rhythm, almost like music. And if you don't get that rhythm right, even if your words are perfect, you'll sound unnatural.
This is so important, Michael. Let me give an example. Take the sentence, I didn't say she stole the money. Depending on which word you stress, the meaning completely changes. If you stress I, it means someone else said it. If you stress didn't, you're denying you said it. If you stress she, you're implying someone else stole it. The words are the same, but the stress pattern changes everything.
That's a brilliant example. And this is why listening is so crucial. You need to train your ear to hear where native speakers place stress in sentences. Generally speaking, we stress content words like nouns, main verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. We don't usually stress function words like articles, prepositions, and auxiliary verbs. So in the sentence, I'm going to the store, we stress going and store, but we reduce I'm, to, and the.
And this brings us to another point, filler words and discourse markers. When native speakers talk, we don't speak in perfect sentences. We pause, we think, we use words like like, you know, I mean, so, and well. These might seem meaningless, but they actually serve important functions. They give us time to think, they signal that we're about to change topics, and they make our speech sound more conversational and natural.
Yes, and I know some teachers tell students to avoid filler words completely, but I actually disagree with that. Used appropriately, filler words make you sound more natural and less scripted. The key is appropriately. You don't want to overuse them to the point where they're distracting, but a few here and there are perfectly normal.
Absolutely. Let me demonstrate. Compare these two ways of answering a question. First, the unnatural way. My favorite hobby is reading because it allows me to expand my knowledge and vocabulary. Now, the natural way, well, my favorite hobby is probably reading. I mean, I just love getting lost in a good book, you know? It's like I learn so much and it's actually fun.
Perfect. And notice how Jennifer used well, probably, I mean, you know, and like. These little words add personality and make the speaker sound more relatable and authentic.
Now, Michael, let's talk about something that might surprise our listeners. Making mistakes is actually part of sounding natural. Native speakers make mistakes all the time. We start sentences and then change our minds halfway through. We use the wrong word and then correct ourselves. We false start, we trail off, we interrupt ourselves. This is completely normal.
So true. And this is liberating for learners because it means you don't have to be perfect. In fact, trying too hard to be perfect can make you sound unnatural. If you make a small mistake, just correct yourself naturally and move on. Don't apologize profusely or draw attention to it. Native speakers usually just say something like, I mean, or sorry, I meant, and continue.
Exactly. Let me give you an example. I went to the store yesterday. Or wait, was it Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday. Anyway, I bought some, what do you call it? That spice. Cumin. Yeah, cumin. See how natural that sounds? The speaker is thinking out loud, correcting themselves, and even forgetting a word temporarily. But it doesn't sound like a problem. It sounds human.
That's a great example, Jennifer. Now, let's talk about informal expressions and idioms. This is where a lot of learners struggle because these expressions often don't make literal sense, but they're absolutely essential for sounding natural. Phrases like hang out, catch up, freak out, piece of cake, hit the books, and call it a day are used constantly in casual conversation.
And the tricky part is that you can't usually figure out these expressions from the individual words. You just have to learn them. But here's my advice. Don't try to memorize lists of idioms. Instead, pay attention to the expressions you hear repeatedly in movies, TV shows, podcasts, and real conversations. Those are the ones that are actually used frequently. Learn those first.
Excellent advice. And speaking of learning from real sources, that's probably the single best way to learn how to sound natural. You need massive amounts of input from authentic sources. Listen to podcasts like this one, watch TV shows and movies, listen to how real people talk on YouTube or social media. Pay attention to the patterns, the expressions, the rhythm, the reductions. Your brain will start to absorb these patterns naturally.
And here's a technique I recommend: shadowing. This means listening to a native speaker and trying to speak at exactly the same time, matching their rhythm, intonation, and pronunciation as closely as possible. It feels weird at first, but it's incredibly effective for training your mouth and brain to produce natural-sounding English.
Shadowing is amazing. I also recommend recording yourself speaking and then comparing it to native speakers. This can be uncomfortable because most people don't like hearing their own voice, but it's so valuable. You'll hear exactly where you sound unnatural and what you need to work on.
Now, let's talk about another aspect of sounding natural: being concise and getting to the point. In many cultures, it's polite to give long, elaborate explanations with lots of context. But in English-speaking cultures, especially in North America, we tend to value directness and brevity. We get to the point quickly, and then add details if needed.
That's right. For example, if someone asks, "Do you want to go to the movies tonight?" an unnatural response might be, "Well, I was thinking about it, and I considered my schedule, and I have some work to do, but it's not urgent, so I believe I could make time. Therefore, yes, I would like to go." A natural response would be, "Yeah, sounds good. I've got some work, but I can finish it later."
Perfect example, Michael. And this relates to another point: using positive language in enthusiasm. Native English speakers, especially in American English, tend to use a lot of positive, enthusiastic language. We say things like, "That's awesome! Sounds great! I'd love to! Absolutely!" Even when we're just moderately interested. This might feel like exaggerating if you come from a more reserved culture, but it's completely normal in English.
Yes, and on the flip side, when we disagree or say no, we often soften it with phrases like, "I'm not sure about that," or "I see what you mean, but," or "That's one way to look at it." Direct disagreement can sound harsh in English, so we use these softening phrases to be polite.
And let's talk about questions and responses. In natural English conversation, we don't always use grammatically complete questions. Instead of, "Would you like to have some coffee?" we might just say, "Coffee?" with a rising intonation. Instead of, "Do you understand what I mean?" we might say, "You know what I mean?" or just, "Makes sense?"
Right. And when responding, we don't always use complete sentences either. If someone asks, "Did you finish the report?" you could say, "Yeah, I did," but you could also just say, "Yep," or "All done," or "Finished it this morning." Short, natural responses are perfectly acceptable.
Now, I want to address something that might surprise people: regional variations. English sounds different depending on where you are. American English, British English, Australian English, and other varieties all have different vocabulary, pronunciation, and expressions. And here's the thing: they're all correct and they're all natural. You don't have to sound American or British specifically. You just need to be consistent and clear.
That's such an important point, Jennifer. Don't stress about having a perfect accent. Native speakers have all kinds of different accents. What matters is being understood and sounding natural within whichever variety of English you're learning. If you're learning British English, use British expressions and pronunciation. If you're learning American English, do the same. Just be consistent.
And honestly, having an accent from your native language is completely fine. Many successful English speakers around the world have accents. What makes them effective communicators is that they use natural expressions, appropriate intonation, and confident delivery. They don't sound like robots reading from a textbook.
Absolutely. And now let's give our listeners some specific practice techniques they can use to improve their natural speaking. First, as we mentioned, listen to tons of authentic English. Not textbook English, but real conversations. Podcasts are great for this because you hear natural, unscripted dialogue.
Second, practice speaking out loud every single day, even if you're just talking to yourself. Narrate what you're doing, describe what you see, or practice having imaginary conversations. The more you speak, the more automatic it becomes.
Third, find language partners or conversation groups where you can practice with other people. Real interaction is irreplaceable. You need to get comfortable with the unpredictability of conversation, with responding in the moment, with handling questions you didn't prepare for. Fourth, imitate native speakers. Find speakers whose style you like and try to copy them. Pay attention to their word choice, their rhythm, their expressions. This isn't about losing your identity. It's about expanding your repertoire.
And fifth, don't be afraid to make mistakes or sound imperfect. Confidence is actually a huge part of sounding natural. If you speak with confidence and personality, people will focus on what you're saying, not how you're saying it. But if you're constantly apologizing or being overly cautious, that draws attention to your language and makes you seem less natural.
Jennifer, that's such an important point to end on. Sounding natural isn't just about technique, it's about mindset. You have to give yourself permission to be imperfect, to experiment, to play with the language. English should be fun, not stressful.
Absolutely. And remember, everyone you hear speaking English naturally today was once a beginner. They got to where they are through practice, patience, and persistence. You can do the same.
All right, everyone, we've covered so much today. Let's do a quick recap. To sound natural in English, use contractions and connected speech, pay attention to stress and intonation, use filler words and discourse markers appropriately, learn and use informal expressions, be concise and direct, practice with authentic materials, and most importantly, speak with confidence.
If you found this episode helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with anyone you know who's learning English. Every share helps us reach more learners and create more content like this. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode.
Also, we absolutely love hearing from you. Drop a comment below telling us what your biggest challenge is with sounding natural in English, or share a tip that's worked for you. We read every comment, and your feedback helps us create better content for you. All right, before we go, I want to say thank you, Jennifer, for another great conversation. You always bring such great insights and energy to these discussions.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you to everyone listening. Your dedication to learning English is inspiring, and we're so grateful to be part of your journey.
All right, everyone, that's it for today's episode of the English Nexus Podcast. Keep practicing, keep learning, and remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's connection. Until next time, keep speaking, keep improving, and keep being awesome.
See you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye.